It isn't just the lyrics, it's the beat.
Alright groovers, you've come to the right place. This is Retrospect 60s Garage Punk Show and it is episode 578. The focus of this episode is the European continent. We get to that later in the episode. But I started off with a band called Los Iberos. You can see them on the Retrospect Facebook and Insta. Just search Retrospect 60s Garage Punk. Los Iberos, a band who recorded for Columbia Records out of Spain. Their cover of Liar Liar was from 1969. Now Liar Liar, many of you will know that song, done by the Castaways. And if you want to hear as much, well, probably more than you ever wanted to hear about that song, I can recommend the In the Past Garage Rock podcast, a recent listen for me as I was out pounding the streets. It is an hour discussion of one song, every episode, one song, several different versions of it. And if this show isn't enough talk for you, that one will probably satisfy you. In the Past Garage Rock podcast, a recent episode, the song Liar Liar, they included that version by Los Iberos. Cool way to start this episode.
It's just what you've been waiting for. You asked for it, now here it is.
Retrospect. Well, this Garage Rock podcast isn't all about talk. In fact, I try and keep the talk to a minimum because it's about the music, and I've got a couple of sets of tracks out of the States. Before we get into Global Garage, let's get into it with a band out of Bristol, Connecticut. They released one single which failed to even be a regional hit, but is now regarded a classic of its era. It's been described as the yearning lyrics and melody, vibrant jangling guitars, and brisk propulsive beat all combined to make this song a transcendent rock and roll record. Here it is, The Squires with Goin' All the Way.
Hi, this is Steve from Charlotte, North Carolina. Loving the groovy 60s garage sound. It's really not just the lyrics, it's the beat. You're listening to Phil Gray and Retrospect, 60s Garage Punk Show.
In the valley of the Jolly, ho, ho, ho.
Que sí, pero qué barbaridad, qué manera de hablar, mi madre, cómo habla, pero qué pesadísima eres, o sea, no te aguanto.
Well, what a selection of great global garage from the continent. That set started in France with Nicolas Nils and Les Murators covering The Seeds' Pushin' Too Hard. Then we had a band called George Cash. Yes, a band out of Holland, out of the Netherlands, part of that Nederbeat scene, although fairly late for what's defined as Nederbeat. 1969 release from them on Philips Records, George Cash with Long, Hard and Dry. Then we had Los Continentals out of Spain. They recorded on a label called Discos Tempo. This is a 1966 release called Mr. D from Los Continentals. Hi, I'm Phil Gray, host of Retrospect 60s Garage Punk Show. It's a labour of love, and if you dig what I do, why not buy me a beer? Yeah. Or just a coffee? You can do that now via buymeacoffee.com/Mr. Phil Gray. That's buymeacoffee.com/MrPhilGrey, Mr. Phil Gray. I may not be able to have a beer or coffee in person, but we can do it virtually. On with the show. There's a band out of Romania called Ensemble Synchron, sometimes just Synchron. It's from a record called Romanish Gitarin, which I guess means Romanian guitar, sometimes titled or translated as Citare Romaneschi, released on a label called Amiga in 1971, described as being from Romania or the German Democratic Republic. This is Synchron. I Gara la Liodine. Well, that's a band called Synchron, Igara la Liodene, off a compilation called Surf Beat Behind the Iron Curtain. A very interesting compilation from that comp. Also, our final track for this week, Surf Beat Behind the Iron Curtain Volume 1, featuring underground, garage and surf rock musical artists east of the Iron Curtain, all recorded between 63 and 66. It's a curious record because also on there are Japanese bands, and actually only 11 of the 24 tracks were recorded by Western European bands. So unusual. Anyway, my selection is a cover of Wipeout, first done by the Surfaris in 1963. This version by the Eliminators, who I believe were actually a British beat group. Curious. The Eliminators, Wipeout, wrapping this episode. Thanks again for joining me here on Retrospect 60s Garage Punk Show. Connect with Retrospect. Retrospect's Garage Punk Radio on Facebook and Retrospect 60s Garage Punk on Instagram. And for back episodes, find Retrospect 60s Garage Punk Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and lots more great podcasting platforms.
Tragedy, horrible day, worst in our country's history, a horror show.